Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Bible Summary Series. Today, we are starting in Genesis chapter 35. And God said to Jacob, "Get up, go to Bethel, and live there. Make an altar to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau." So Jacob told his household and everyone living with them, "Get rid of the strange gods among you, cleanse yourselves, and put on clean clothes. We are traveling to Bethel, where I will make an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and has been with me wherever I go." So they gave Jacob all their strange gods and all their earrings, and he hid them under the oak near Shechem. As they traveled, the terror of God fell on the cities all around them, so they didn't chase after the sons of Jacob. Finally, Jacob arrived at Luz, also called Bethel, in the land of Canaan. There he built an altar and called the place El Bethel, because God had appeared to him there when he was fleeing from his brother Esau. Soon afterward, Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and they buried her beneath Bethel under an oak, which they named Allon Bacuth, which means oak of weeping. Once again, God appeared to Jacob and blessed him. "Your name is Jacob," he said, "but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." Then God said, "I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a group of nations will come from you, and kings will come from your loins. The land I gave Abraham and Isaac, I will give to you and to your descendants." After God spoke to him, Jacob set up a stone pillar, poured wine over it as an offering to God, and anointed the stone with olive oil, and he named the place Bethel. Then Jacob left there, and he and his family traveled towards Ephrath. But while they were still far away, Rachel went into hard labor, and she had a very difficult delivery. Right after giving birth, the midwife said to her, "Don't be afraid. You have another son." As Rachel breathed her last breath, for she died right after giving birth, she named the baby Benoni, which means "son of my sorrow." But Jacob called him Benjamin, "son of my right hand." And so Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. Jacob set up a pillar on her grave, and it's still there to this day. Then Israel continued on his journey, and he set up a camp beyond the Tower of Eder. But while they were living there, Reuben, his eldest son, went and slept with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard about it. Now Jacob had 12 sons. Leah had Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Rachel had Joseph and Benjamin. Bilhah, Rachel's maid, had Dan and Naphtali. Zilpah, Leah's maid, had Gad and Asher. Finally, Jacob returned to his father Isaac in Mamre, near Kiriath Arba, Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had lived as foreigners. Isaac lived for 180 years. Then he died and joined his ancestors at a ripe old age, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. In Genesis chapter 36, we read of the generations of Esau. Esau married 3 women: Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite; Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah; and Basemath, Ishmael's daughter, the sister of Nebaioth. Adah gave birth to a son named Eliphaz. Basemath gave birth to Reuel. Oholibamah had 3 sons, Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. So Esau had 5 sons. Eventually, Esau had to take his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all of his servants, along with his cattle and all the wealth he had gained in the land of Canaan, and move away from his brother Jacob, because their riches were too great, and the land couldn't support all their flocks together. So Esau, also known as Edom, settled in the hill country of Seir. Esau lived there, and he became the father of many leaders. Numerous dukes came from Esau's bloodline, along with many princes and kings who reigned in the land of Edom before there reigned any kings over the children of Israel. In Genesis chapter 36, Jacob stayed and lived in the land of Canaan, just like his father Isaac and grandfather Abraham had. And this is the story of Jacob and his family. When Joseph was 17 years old, he was taking care of the flock with his half-brothers, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. And Joseph brought back a bad report about them to his father. Now Israel, formerly called Jacob, loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. When his brothers saw that their father loved Joseph more than the rest of them, they hated him and couldn't speak a kind word to him. One night Joseph had a dream, and he shared it with his brothers, and the dream made them hate him even more. "Listen to this dream I had," he said. "We were binding sheaves in the field, and my sheaf arose and stood straight up, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to my sheaf." Hearing his words, his brothers snarled at him. "Are you going to reign over us? Do you really think you'll actually rule over us?" And they hated him even more because of his dream and his words. But Joseph had another dream, which he also shared. "Look," he said, "I've had another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What kind of dream is that? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow to the ground before you?" But while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his father pondered on what the dreams could mean. Not long afterwards, his brothers went to pasture their father's flock in Shechem. Israel called for Joseph and said, "Your brothers are pasturing the sheep in Shechem. Come, I will send you to check on them." "Here I am," Joseph replied. "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks," Israel said, "and bring word back to me." So Jacob sent Joseph from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering in the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" "I'm looking for my brothers," Joseph replied. "Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" The man said, "They have moved on from here. I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers, and he found them near Dothan. But when his brothers saw him in the distance, they recognized him, and they conspired to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to one another. "Come on, let's kill him and throw his body into one of these cisterns, and then say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what becomes of his precious dreams." But Reuben overheard them, and he tried to save Joseph by saying, "Let's not kill him. Instead," he suggested, "let's throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." For Reuben's plan was to secretly come back and free Joseph and return him safely to his father. When Joseph arrived, his brothers grabbed him, stripped him of his coat of many colors, and violently threw him into an empty pit without water. Then they sat down to eat their bread. While they ate, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites with camels, carrying spices, balm, and myrrh, coming from Gilead and traveling down to Egypt. "What will we gain by killing our brother?" Judah said to his brothers. "Then we'll have to cover our crime. Instead, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites, so we don't have to kill him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." And Judah's brothers agreed with this suggestion. So when the Ishmaelites, who were Midianite traders, came by, the brothers pulled Joseph out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and the merchants took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph wasn't in it, he tore his clothes in distress. Then he went back to his brothers and cried, "The boy isn't there, and where shall I go to hide from my father?" Then they took Joseph's coat, killed a kid goat, and dipped the coat in its blood. They sent the beautiful robe to their father, saying, "We found this coat. Do you recognize it? Is it your son's coat?" Jacob recognized it at once and cried out, "It is my son's coat. An evil beast has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son for many days. All his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, "I will go down to the grave, mourning for my son." Thus Jacob wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianite traders traveled to Egypt, and when they arrived, they sold Joseph to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and his captain of the guard.